So how do we cut down our carbon dioxide emissions? Some of the world's leading scientists are convinced that finding a solution is a matter of extreme urgency. Professor Steve Pacala is one of them.
I've worked on a variety of environmental problems in my lifetime, and usually you go into them and become a little bit less concerned as you go along. The global warming problem is the reverse. The people who are professionals and work on it become more and more concerned through time. For me, this is the most serious of environmental problems, and it's the one that we need to solve now. If this is the amount of greenhouse gas that we emit into the atmosphere every year today, then 50 years from now, we're going to be pumping out twice that much. And to solve the problem of global warming and to prevent the atmospheric blanket from more than doubling, what we need to do instead is to freeze emissions at the current level for the next 50 years.
Because there's no single way to solve the problem of global warming, Pacala has broken it into 7 equal pieces. He's then suggested a different way we can solve each slice, one at a time, until we reach the ultimate goal of halting the rise of carbon emissions.
I've looked at it closely, and I believe that it can be solved by this generation. The technology now exists to solve the greenhouse warming problem if we develop the collective will to implement it.
The first of Steve Pacala's slices can be dealt with using technology close at hand. I met carbon counting guru Dave Ray to find out how we can all set our house in order. Okay, so here is a newly built house.
This is where really climate change begins. Our houses represent a huge amount of emissions. On a household basis in the UK, each household emits about 25 tonnes of greenhouse gas every year. So they're a huge contributor to our climate impact.
Let's have a look inside.
So this is a prime example of a lot of energy use going on in the home and actually a lot of wastage.
Well, this thermostat?
Absolutely, yeah. And this one's set too high. For every degree we reduce it, we'll save about 1/3 of a tonne of greenhouse gas.
Every year?
Every year.
So that comes down?
Yeah.
And I wear a jersey?
Yeah. Dress for the weather is the bottom line.
So the Carbons, bundled up for the winter, have turned their thermostat down 3 degrees. It saves them money on their electricity bill, and each year it keeps a tonne of carbon out of the atmosphere. Television.
Yeah, this is a big one. And if we look at some of these gadgets down here, we've got lots of little lights. They're using energy even when you're not watching television. And together, in the average home, they're now accounting for about 10% of our electricity use. All these things on standby power. So they're draining electricity from the grid.
10% of all household electricity
yeah.
goes on complete waste, simply standing by.
It's basically electricity just to power little lights.
I have to say I had no idea it was as high as that.
The rule of thumb is, if you finish using something, then turn it off.
It isn't that turning on and off a set damages it?
Well, if there is, then the manufacturers have a real problem that they need to sort out.
There are dozens of things we can do around the house, from composting vegetable waste to switching to energy-saving light bulbs. So that really will help preserve the Arctic ice cap, just by changing a bulb?
It'll do a tiny bit in the right direction. This is good news for this house because it's a gas hob rather than an electric one.
The more insulation, the better.
For an average fridge, you can save 200 kilograms of greenhouse gas just by keeping the thing clean.
And buying locally grown food can cut down on the food miles.
And they're grown right here. That's pretty cool.
If we all made the most efficient choices in our homes and offices, we would reduce those emissions by a quarter and cut off one of Steve Pacana's global warming slices. Perhaps the simplest way most of us can combat global warming is to change the way we drive. The Carbons have opted for a more fuel-efficient car. If by mid-century 2 billion of the world's cars can do 60 miles to the gallon, it would deal with one more of the 7 slices. Or if we all drive half as much as we do now, which might mean using public transport instead, we will also cut a slice. Another major challenge is to find carbon-free sources of power. However controversial, tripling the world's nuclear power would cut our emissions by a further slice. This is a solar farm, 3 acres of solar panels dedicated to collecting energy directly from the sun.
Renewable sources of energy, such as solar panels, are able to produce electricity with no carbon dioxide emissions to the atmosphere at all. And these might be scaled up to provide a sizable fraction of the solution to the global warming problem.
In countries like China, solar is set to make a real difference. Britain's climate, however, has never been perfect for solar power, but there are other natural resources we have plenty of.